How to identify and address breadcrumbing. This toxic behavior uses the principle of intermittent reinforcement to keep you invested. Every once in a while, a pop culture term does such a good job describing a problematic human behavior that it becomes part of our collective vocabulary. It happened with ghosting, it happened with love bombing, it happened with trauma dumping, and it's happening again. This time the term in question is breadcrumbing. It's evocative, easy to understand, and while it's not a clinical term, it's helping everyday people describe their feelings and experiences in mental health settings. What is breadcrumbing? For people growing up in the Western world, the concept of a trail of breadcrumbs is associated with the Brothers Grimm fairy tale, Hansel and Gretel. In the story, the children use breadcrumbs as a way to mark a path through the woods, a way to ensure they can always get home. Today, a trail of breadcrumbs can be benevolent or malevolent. Sometimes, the crudely made path leads you home, like it does in the story. But sometimes, like in breadcrumbing, it lures you deeper into the woods, gets you lost, or leads you into a trap. Breadcrumbing is when you give an individual just enough morsels of attention to keep them interested or hooked into the relationship or situationship without any intention of really committing. Essentially, it's a tactic used to string somebody along. While most frequently used in a romantic context, breadcrumbing can happen in any relationship. In the workplace, it might look like a boss giving you some praise or giving you the promise that maybe you'll be promoted. You hang in there because the possibility is on the horizon, and then it never happens. It can also look like a flaky friend, a manipulative family member, or in the case of online dating, a person you've never actually met. What's interesting about breadcrumbing is that it works on the principle of intermittent reinforcement, which is a principle in psychology that describes an addictive cycle. Gambling is a great example of intermittent reinforcement. If you're putting quarters into a slot machine and nothing comes out, you'll quickly stop. But if you win every once in a while, you're more likely to keep playing. Breadcrumbers create a system of intermittent reinforcement through their actions. Long periods of disengagement punctuated by a flirty text here, a call there, maybe even a date, but nothing ever progresses. Breadcrumbing creates a mixture of hope and disappointment. There's the hope that the individual is going to become engaged in the relationship, and then there's disappointment when things don't continue. What breadcrumbing feels like. If you're being breadcrumbed, you can expect to experience several of these feelings: confusion, anger, self-doubt, anxiety, sadness, loneliness, inadequacy, embarrassment, hope, self-consciousness. Who is susceptible to breadcrumbing? There probably aren't very many people who don't know what it feels like to be breadcrumbed. It happens to everybody sometimes. But some people are more likely to be breadcrumbed or to follow the trail for longer than others. Certain kinds of childhood trauma can make the hope and disappointment cycle of breadcrumbing familiar or even comfortable to some people. If you grew up receiving inconsistent attention from your parents or caregivers, for example, you might be used to this kind of treatment. People who are living with substance use disorder or who have an addictive personality are also particularly susceptible to breadcrumbing because the highs and lows you experience in a relationship with a breadcrumber create an addictive cycle of their own. People with low self-esteem or certain mental health issues, like depression, anxiety, or eating disorders, can be more vulnerable to this kind of emotional manipulation. What are the signs of breadcrumbing? The roller coaster cycle of expectation and frustration that comes with breadcrumbing can leave you feeling confused, let down, and hurt. But when it comes to relationships, big emotions aren't hard to come by. So how do you know when you're being breadcrumbed? The following can be considered as breadcrumbing red flags. Their communication is sporadic or superficial. Different breadcrumbers will handle communication differently, but none of them will be reliable. They may take weeks to respond to a text. They may spend hours talking to you, but only once in a blue moon. They may shower you with flattery, then go radio silent for months. Maybe they're consistent communicators, but the content of your conversations with them are similarly non-committal. Take note if they're asking a lot of questions, but not volunteering much information about themselves, of their lives. They could also stay strictly focused on the physical, avoiding topics that require them to be vulnerable or emotional. They only communicate in certain ways. Social media is a breadcrumber's paradise because engagement takes very little effort. You don't even need to use words to send a mixed message. Liking the right post or picture or sending the right emoji takes less than a second, but it can prompt some serious overthinking on the breadcrumbie's part. They don't commit to future plans. Take a look at the conversations you're having. With breadcrumbers, there's very little talk of what we're doing next week or where is this relationship going. Everything is very in the moment. And if you do try to nail something down, expect them to stall, dissemble, or make excuses. Their actions don't match their words. They may talk a good game every once in a while, but a breadcrumber is going to lack follow-through. Maybe they flake out on a date at the last minute. Maybe they send a racy text or two, but never actually initiate a physical relationship. Maybe they always seem happy to see you, but don't go to the effort of seeking you out. In one way or another, their actions will leave you either questioning their interest in you or trying to justify their inconsistency. How to handle breadcrumbing. Changing or extricating yourself from a breadcrumbing situation can be quite difficult, but it is possible. These 5 things can help. 1. Identify and label the behavior, knowing breadcrumbing is half the battle. Many of us have an aha moment when we realize that this is what's happening, that the individual is keeping us hooked in without really giving any kind of substance or commitment. Being able to identify and label that behavior is important. To connect with a counselor. Given the addictive nature of breadcrumbing situations, they can be hard to recognize and even harder to address, and you may find yourself seeking that same emotional roller coaster over and over again. Connecting with a counselor is very helpful for understanding your patterns and your relationships. 3. Do some journaling. Journaling is a great way to organize your thoughts and feelings about a breadcrumbing situation. It is helpful making a list of the things that you want and don't want out of your relationship. Journaling will also help you create some boundaries. 4. Confront the breadcrumber. Once you've labeled the process, it's time to have an honest, direct conversation with the person that's breadcrumbing you. Tell the individual that it seems like they're leading you on and not really committing to the relationship. After all, it's possible that the breadcrumber isn't aware of the behavior or doesn't understand that their actions are hurtful. Having an honest conversation about how their actions make you feel gives them the opportunity to make changes, if not in your relationship, in future ones. 5. If necessary, end the relationship. How does being breadcrumbed make you feel? Rejected? Manipulated? Embarrassed? Lonely? Are you twisting yourself in knots trying to justify their behavior, or holding out hope that they'll eventually change? Is this a healthy relationship? Do you feel like the relationship, be it friendly, romantic, professional, or familial, is meeting your needs? Are you missing out on other opportunities because you're invested in a breadcrumber? Weigh your answers to those questions against what you're actually getting from the relationship, not what you hope to get eventually. Is it enough to outweigh the impact their behavior has on you? If the answers are no, it's probably time to do the hard work of breaking the cycle of intermittent reinforcement and ending the relationship. Why do people breadcrumb? Breadcrumbing is, well, a really crummy way to treat somebody. So why do people do it? And are they doing it on purpose? As with so many questions about why humans are the way they are, the answer's a bit squishy. It depends on the person. For some, it's a narcissistic behavior. They do it to have control over and get attention from you. In those cases, breadcrumbing is an intentional act. For others, it's a sign of an avoidant or insecure attachment style. It may be that they have difficulty committing to a relationship. It could also be a result of low self-esteem. Consciously or unconsciously, they may be keeping you on the hook because your interest is a sort of validation. It makes them feel better about themselves. So the answer isn't straightforward. A breadcrumber may or may not know that their actions are harmful, or they may or may not care. That's why communication, identifying where the behavior is coming from, is crucial. How to stop breadcrumbing others. So far, we've focused on the person being breadcrumbed. But what if you're the breadcrumber? What do you do if people you care about have pointed this behavior out to you? It may not be an awareness that you have yourself, if you have a narcissistic personality, but if people in your life have repeatedly pointed out this pattern, then it's an important time to take a pause and look at it more closely. The next step? You have to make a choice. Decide whether you are going to address the behavior or not, and have some empathy for what it may feel like to be the person on the other side. If you're ready to make a change, get some counseling. It's important to take time to reflect, to understand why you are reluctant to commit, or why you feel you need attention from the other individual. You don't deserve crummy behavior. Being breadcrumbed is no fun and can really damage your self-concept and self-esteem. Changing or getting out of the relationship is important, but it's equally important to reflect on yourself. Try to identify why are you accepting so little attention and effort from the other individual. Being in a breadcrumbing situation could be a sign that you need to work on your self-esteem or sense of self-worth in relationships. Consider making a list of what you want and deserve. It can be really simple things, like consistent responses to text messages. It's a start, anyway. Just keep crumbs off the list. Subscribe to our channel for more exciting updates, and thank you for watching.